Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry upper deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Good morning, Buffaloes Nation. Welcome into another edition of the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast here on your home for Buffaloes content on G-Show Productions. Episode 22, Season 2 of the official Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast is brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. I'm your host, Graham the G-Show Forsyth. Glad to be back on this Wednesday morning. We got a great show on deck for you all, as 4 guests in total are going to be joining this show. We got an interview coming up once again this week with 3 players from one team in particular this week in the U17 Male Prep Buffaloes. Gordie Tumilson's also going to be joining the show for this week's episode, and we're going to be taking you through all the latest happenings from around Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, what the players have been getting up to when they haven't been playing games on the ice as of late. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it right away. In terms of who's going to be joining the show, first up here, it's going to be Dylan Swenson, Christian Cabby, and Griffin McGinty, all U17 Male Prep Buffaloes. As for Dylan, Christian, and Griffin, they're all in their first years in their experience of playing for Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. I had a chance to ask them about how this first year's truly been going for them, what they've enjoyed the most about Pilot Mountain, and more here coming up on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Enjoy, everybody. We got 3 more players joining us on this edition of the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast, the Buffaloes podcast. In the middle, it's Christian Cabby. To my right, to Kristen's left, it is just taking a look at the roster to get his last name here. Dylan Svensson, and as well as Griffin McGinty. Boys, thanks for taking the time and joining me here. It's your first year in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. How's it been spending your hockey season here for the first time in the CSSHL League in small town Pilot Mountain?
Going pretty good. I mean, season's going pretty well, and we're making a lot of new friends.
Um,
Same here.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Right on. Yeah, friendship's always one of the most special parts of the sport, right? Things that you'll remember forever will be these friendships that you make. I guess I'll start off by getting into this in terms of what brought you three to Pilot Mountain. Doesn't matter who starts. We could start with Dylan, and then you can work your way down with the answers with the other two afterwards.
Well, I was just at a tournament in Winnipeg, and my coach, assistant coach Danny, he saw me there and talked to me and my family and invited me out for a few skates, and here I am.
For you, Cabby.
I guess I kind of communicated to Coach Rick, and then I came out here for a few skates, and here I am.
And for you, yourself, Griffin.
My my brother went here last year, so we were up here visiting him, and I got to skate with the team, and I'm here now.
Yeah, right on. So all three of you getting down to Pilot Mound in similar but different ways. For you, Griffin, I mean, you just talked about how your brother played here last year. How was that, in terms of making it easier to make the decision of already having the familiarity you had with this program beforehand, making the decision?
It was nice knowing that my brother was here before, and it's a nice program to be at. It's like family up here.
Right on. And with you actually getting to experience playing in the program now, what's been your favorite part throughout this first year of your growth as a player at Pilot Mound?
How close everyone is up here. There isn't the town isn't too big, so everyone knows everyone. So you get to grow a bond with everyone and everything up here.
Oh yeah, and that's something that a lot of players love to bring up in terms of being a huge positive for them, right? Being a small town where everyone is so connected. For you, Christian, I mean, you talked about how you had a chance to be in contact with head coach Rick McConnell, getting to learn from him this season as well as getting to play with the players you've been able to play with. Speak about what your developments have been like throughout your first season here playing against this CSSHL competition with Pilot Mound.
I think it's been pretty good. I mean, I've learned so much from Coach Rick, and I've learned a lot from other players and what they bring to the team.
What would you say would be maybe one of the biggest things that you've learned throughout your time here, maybe from Coach Rick or maybe just in terms of facing off against the competition you have?
Probably hockey IQ.
Hockey IQ. Is that something that's always been strong in your game, but something you feel like could get better here throughout your time with the Buffaloes?
Not as strong, but I think through the Buffaloes, it's made it stronger.
So, for yourself, Christian, what type of player would you say you are for yourself in terms of if I had never seen you play before, which I haven't, what could I expect out of your game?
Probably a team player, always looking to pass the puck and get it into the zone.
And always huge for a team to have that, right? A player that's gonna give it his all for his teammates, right? For you, Dylan, you had a chance to talk about how the assistant coach influenced you a bit in making your decision to come down to Pilot Mound. Now that you've had a chance to come all the way from Dryden, Ontario, to play in this league, talk about what it's been like for your first year here developing as a Buffalo in this U17 prep program.
It's been a pretty big adjustment, going from double A to prep. It's been a pretty big jump, but everyone here has made it so welcoming, so it's been pretty easy to get going.
Yeah, that always makes it easier, right? When everyone's so welcoming and helps you settle in a bit more. Can you talk about what you feel has been the biggest challenges so far? Has it just been the pace of the game, maybe, or something else?
Yeah, this the speed and the intensity is just so much higher than what I was used to. But with time, I'm getting more comfortable in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, you've only had a chance to, along with your teammates, play about 47 games for yourself. You got five total goals this year for you, Griffin. You have the one in the 47 games, and then for Christian also with six. What was that like for yourself, Griffin, being able to score that first career goal as a Buffalo this season?
It was fun. We were out in BC and just got to put the puck in the net.
Yeah, anything flashy to put it in, or just kind of a right place, right time situation?
Right place, right time.
Oh, right on. Hey, they all count the same, right? The old saying goes, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And excited to see how many you can put up throughout your career here with this Buffaloes team. For you, Christian, being able to put up six goals, six assists so far this season, getting to learn the ins and outs of this league. Take me through how you felt that you spoke about the IQ, but where you're looking to, I guess, improve moving forward in other areas to maybe see a spike in that point total.
Um, Probably being more confident in my play, and getting it into the zone and being able to keep it there.
Right on. I think those are some great things to strive for. And for yourself, Dylan, you've been able to put up 13 points in 47 games played. You talked about the pace of the game, how that's something you felt you've had to get used to. Any other things that you're looking to, I guess, improve in your game to see the point totals rise moving forward in your U17 prep career?
I'm hoping to improve on my skating and my hands. They were good at double A, but in prep, it's just way different. So those are two things I want to work on.
Well, you've all had a chance to get a ton of ice time this season in terms of the extra ice, the practice times, and everything that Pilot Mound supplies from all three of you. I mean, what's that experience been like getting to have more time than ever in a team facility to be able to get on the ice and improve your craft?
It's been really good. Last year I didn't have that, and it's been really different, but it's greatly impacted my everything that I do in hockey.
For yourself, Griffin?
I played with Christian last year, so I'm in the same boat as him. It's nice to develop my game more.
Right on. And for you, Dylan, I mean, you just spoke about how you want to get the skating in the hands better. How nice is that to have that extra outlet, to have that extra time to be able to work on those specific skills?
It's great. There's always ice, always gym. Like everything's available to work on whatever I want to work on. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, and speaking of nice, Griffin mentioned BC, right? And you boys had a chance to travel to many different places throughout the country this year, getting to play many different teams and different tournaments, CSSHL play, and whatever else. What's that been like getting to live the academy lifestyle in that way in terms of, of course, playing hockey, but getting to see the beautiful place that you boys been to?
Um, it's been really good. It's been exciting to see different places that I've never seen before, and it's great to see the different views and different types of hockey players all around the provinces and territories.
Right on, right on. And I mean, for you, Dylan, coming from Dryden, Ontario, I'm not sure where you've been before with double A teams, but what's this experience been like this year from a travel perspective, getting to experience that with this squad this year?
It's been pretty awesome. A lot longer bus rides than I'm used to. Last year it was maximum 4 hours. Now we're up to like 20. But it's nice.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to what Griffin said earlier about being a BC, Griffin, has that been your favorite place so far to visit, or is there's some place else that you've enjoyed, your time here with Pilot Mountain when you boys been on the road?
Yeah, that was probably the best. It was really nice out there getting to visit in Abbotsford.
Right on, right on. And yeah, I've had a chance to get out to BC myself in the past few years out to Vancouver. Beautiful province, a lot different than here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, or the province of Manitoba in general, as you boys have come to learn from, of course. Dylan coming from Dryden, Ontario, coming down to Pilot Mountain this season and playing his first year of CSSHL play. You boys gonna have a chance to play in some playoff hockey soon here. A few more games to come up on the schedule. There's been some ups this season, some downs, but overall, what's the experience been like from a team perspective? You boys have said everyone's gotten along well, but through the ups and downs, how have you felt that this group has kept their heads up and still been able to stay positive?
Uh, there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs. Some pretty big wins, but then also some pretty tough losses. But everyone's been staying positive and working hard to get better every day.
For you, Christian, from your perspective,
We all come together as a team during the rough times, and I think it makes us better. So I think we're doing pretty well with that.
and for you, Griffin.
We've been coming together throughout the season. There's been ups and downs, but I feel like we're getting better throughout this stretch.
Yeah, and I actually had a chance to speak with your head coach, Rick McConnell, over a month ago now at this point. It feels like that. Anyways, feels like a long time, but he talked about how young this year's team is, and knowing that this year's been so much about growth and so much about developing, there's still, of course, this season left to be played, and the playoff matchups coming up. But based off the improvement and development this year, and you boys planning to stick around, I assume, how excited are you for, I guess, the future heading into next year as well, or the upcoming future with whatever the future holds here in Pilot Mountain for you three?
Um, I think we're very excited for what comes next year, and that's hoping for some good talent next year, and hopefully go far.
For you, Dylan?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of potential next year. Everyone, all the first years from this year have been getting a lot better every day. So next year should be pretty good.
And for yourself, Griffin, before we move into the final question here of the interview.
Yeah, I'm excited for next year. I feel like what Dylan said, the first years are getting better throughout the year so far. So
Right on, and that's all you can ask for, right? In a situation like this, is just improvement throughout the season, which this team is definitely seen from many of their individual players. Coming up this Friday, and then finishing off the regular season on Sunday, two games against the Notre Dame Hounds and a game against the South Alberta Hockey Academy, making a road trip down to Saskatchewan as well as Alberta. From a player perspective, how tough is that in terms of, having to travel one place and then having to travel even further? I guess how the team is preparing for that coming up this weekend, even though the team's been used to traveling so much already.
And like you said, we've gotten adjusted to it, so I think it's a lot easier, but it's definitely harder, and the bus rides aren't as much fun, but it's fun to be with your teammates on that bus.
I'll ask Dylan this question specifically since he brought up longer bus rides this season. What's one of your favorite things to do during a bus ride to kill the time while still getting yourself ready and psyched up to play?
I just listen to music, play games on my phone, and just sleep. Not much else to do.
Right on, there you go, right? I mean, maybe you could put on a TV show or a movie, but gotta ask you, what's the go-to genre or go-to artist? What are you rocking with in your playlist?
A lot of Kendrick Lamar and rap and hip hop and all that.
That's a fantastic choice. I've been bumping a lot of Kendrick Lamar lately. At 24 was truly that guy's year for sure, no doubt about it. For you, Griffin, I mean, I think that maybe your big goal this season is to add on to the one goal you've scored this year. You looking to be even more aggressive than you have been before this season, this weekend coming up in the team's regular season finales.
I feel like with my game, I'm more of a defensive defenseman, so I try to lock down more, but I can get up into the play sometimes. I'll try to add on to that one.
All right, on. Try to add some even more versatility into that solid defensive game of yours. Boys, thanks for taking the time and joining me. This has been a lot of fun. I wish you all the best coming up here to end off your first seasons down in Pilot Mound, and can't wait to see what's in store for all three of you. Griffin, Christian, and Dylan joining me on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, 3U17 prep rookie players on this year's Buffalo squad. Best of luck this upcoming weekend on the road trip, boys. And once again, thanks for joining me here.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you.
you.
Griffin McGinty, Dylan Svensson, as well as um, Kristen Cabby joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Both these players playing in their first year here in the academy, and pretty sure that Griffin comes from Connecticut, as I just want to confirm this. But yeah, I'm sure that for the U.S. born players in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, they're getting all pumped up and excited for what should be a fantastic gold medal game in the Four Nations coming up. But the Buffaloes also got to focus on hockey themselves. As for Gordie Tumilson, he's going to be joining me on the show next to talk about the latest games from the teams in the academy, as I should say, as well as getting a chance to also look at some of the upcoming matchups for all four programs in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's program. You're watching the Buffaloes podcast, the official Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast here on G Show Productions. More to come with Gordie Tumilson after this commercial break. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And it's Gordie Tumilson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast for his weekly segment. Gordie, we're going to be talking about all the teams that were in action for Pilot Mountain this past week and weekend. Reason I bring up week is because, well, the female Buffaloes had a busy week for themselves. About 5 games in 5 days, Gordie. Absolutely crazy schedule for them. They got some more hockey coming up this upcoming weekend to, of course, get closer and closer to finishing their season. But yeah, take us through the crazy 5 days for this female prep squad.
Yeah, busy time for those girls. My gosh, I don't know how that happened this year, but they got to get in a certain number of games, and that's the promise that the league makes. And so to do that, they need to jam some games in there. As I guess the feeling is at that point in the season, exams are over. There's not quite as much pressure on the girls, from the school side. So they get their daily study hall. They get their homework. They get all kinds of stuff from the teachers. And that's what's really neat about our program is that the school is totally in sync with all of this. Doesn't matter what the hockey academy tries to do, the school just reacts perfectly. And it's small classes and so the teachers are able to kind of get in there and work with the kids, and so they know the deal now after 10 years. And so it's a really neat, sorry, deal for the girls. But they played 5 good games, all pretty close. Didn't get a win. They lost a really tight one to Nax 4-3 late in the week. But they had a good week. They got lots of exposure for the girls on Flow TV and all those rinks and all the live scouts, and good preparation for this coming week. They got a tournament in Winnipeg and then the playoffs. So it's a busy time of year, and we just finished up 5 days of real hockey. It's like that's harder than the Jets have. I think they can only play 2 games in a row. They have to have a day off. So I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not, but they played and they played well.
Yeah, and coming away with all losses, but great to know that they were competitive in some of these games, Gordie. As for Buffalo's teams playing so many games in so many days earlier on this year, as we've talked about in a past episode, the U18 male program ended up playing about 6 games in 6 days or so. So yeah. CSSHL hitting Pilot Mountain twice this season with a crazy schedule for 2 different programs. Gordie, as for this U18 female prep squad, what do you feel like you learned from yourself in playing so many games when, yes, you're young and you can get rest, I guess, better and quicker for yourself to get back out there. But how do you truly, I mean, go through this challenge as a player from your experience?
Well, the hard part is the emotional part, getting up for the games. You play a game today, so you go in there all piss and vinegar and ready to fly around. And then you play tomorrow and you get, well, it's just about the same. And it depends who you're playing against. And, unfortunately, we were stacked up against 4 of the 5, I think, teams that were in the top 10. So that didn't help us. But at the end of the day, it's games 3, 4, and 5 that you're getting sort of tired. And the drudgery of going up and down the rink, chasing other players, or trying to score a goal, or do whatever, equipment on, equipment off, on a bus, off a bus, those kinds of things in a hotel room, and boy, oh boy, that becomes pretty monotonous, pretty quick, especially late in the season, because they're all used to this now, so they know the routine. But it is hard emotionally, and for them to drive themselves. You obviously, from a scout standpoint, from a coach standpoint, you get to see who's who in the zoo. I mean, the girls that can step up there every day and play at a high level of consistent hockey, or at a pretty high, that's pretty neat. The goalies get a little break on this because they only, one of them plays 3 games over 5 days, and the other guy plays 2. And the other girl plays 2. So they get a little bit of a break between games, although they got to get dressed and they go for the warm up and do those things. They're not having to put the emotion into the game that the other players are. So I do feel for the forwards and defensemen a little bit. Not often I can say that, but I do feel for the forwards and defensemen in this situation because it's tough every day to go up and down that ice. That's 200 feet long. Man, that becomes a drudgery thing. But anyway, we did see, some really good efforts, consistent efforts, and some up and down efforts. So that's a typical week in hockey anyway. So there you go.
Right. And well, I mean, a chance to bounce back this upcoming weekend as they'll be taking on teams like Okanagan Hockey Academy Black, Delta Hockey Academy, as well as Bourget College Prep. I'm not sure if I said that right, but playing them in a back-to-back. One game on the 22nd and then another one on that Sunday on the 23rd. Gordie, a team that's going to be doing some traveling for themselves this upcoming weekend in the U17 preps. We're in action, yeah, recently, along with, of course, all the teams in Pilot Mountain that were they only played 1 game, and that was on Valentine's Day on Friday against ISA Indigenous Sports Academy in Whitewood, Saskatchewan. Take us through how that lone matchup went for the U17s.
I think we won pretty handily that game, if I'm not mistaken, Graham. Is that what you see on the screen? So yeah, we kind of won that one and had a good game, and it was a there and back sort of thing, which sometimes doesn't make any sense. It's a lot of bus travel. I guess about 4 or 5 hour bus drive from Pilot Mount up that way through the sort of the various little highways that we have to go through and find their way up to highway number 1. But at the end of the day, the kids played well, and so we had a good game and took the bus ride home. Those are all preparation games. We got a couple games this weekend, I think, for the U17s as well. And so this is leading up to the start of the playoffs. I know we got one more weekend after this for a game or two, and then we're into that round. So we're playing games. we're playing against teams that we're capable of competing with at a pretty good level. So that's always good for confidence, etc. And again, those games are all on Flow TV or one of the various streamers, and we get to watch the kids and do all those things. And they again get seen by lots of scouts and general managers of college teams, junior teams, etc. And that's kind of what it's all about: the experience, the competition, the exposure, those kinds of things. So that's another good thing for our U17s to be involved with.
Yeah, and 10-2 the victory against an Indigenous Sports Academy team that has had a tough year for themselves in the standings. But for this U17 squad, Gordie, a season where it looks like right now in these past few games they've really hit their stride. Of course, coming off of that big 6-3 win against RHA Winnipeg. So, just from what you've heard from speaking with the goaltenders, what's the state of the team on this present day on February 18th, heading into the upcoming games against Notre Dame this upcoming weekend?
Well, as you well know, we have our goalie meeting on Monday nights, and we do this little thing on Tuesdays. So this always works out. Yeah, Maddie Palmer is off with the U18s of this on the Monday, as they were playing in North Dakota, and so he was away. So I didn't get to talk to him yet. I'll talk to him maybe later today. But Barrett Hayes, our other goalkeeper, who's played yeoman's hours and games for us on that team, says all things are looking up. I mean, when you win 10-2 and you don't give up a million shots, well, there you go. That's a better game for us. It was a surprise game because the Indigenous guys are usually within a couple of us. Sometimes they beat us, so it was a surprise, sort of maybe lack of effort on the other guy's side, and our guys were full of good stuff. So we went after them and got them, and so we're feeling good about ourselves. That 6-3 win from RHA, and then we scored some goals there, and those come hard sometimes. So maybe that's all part of that big 10-2 win. Let's see if we can carry it forward next weekend.
Back to the Buffaloes podcast. Gordie Tumilson joining myself, Graham Forsyth, here on this edition of the show. We've talked about the U18 female prep Buffaloes to start things off with Gordie, talked about the U17s, and now we'll be talking about the other U18 program, the male prep Buffaloes, as their past weekend, well, as Gordie mentioned, Matt Palmer ended up traveling with the team as they ended up going down to Grand Forks. They had a game in Pilot Mound as well, and also a game on Valentine's Day at 4:30 p.m. a bit earlier on than the U17s played against Indigenous Sports Academy. Gordie, interesting week, a bunch of different opponents for this Pilot Mound squad that's getting ready for their final games of the season in the upcoming postseason play that they'll be playing in. Take me through their past weekend for this U18 prep squad.
Yeah, it wasn't our best weekend. We had some tough games, but nonetheless finished them all, and we lost one of our goalies to a suspension that has cost him a second fighting suspension for Tate Sanchez. So that's too bad. I think sometimes you got to defend yourself a little bit, or just defend your teammates when they get under stress and get beat up a little bit. And Tate takes it upon himself to do that a little bit more than most goalie guys. We'd prefer them to stay in the net and not get involved, but he got involved and he's got himself a suspension for the balance of the year, I think, which is pretty heavy, but nonetheless, it, um, it always signals to the players that they got to be on their best behavior, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what happened. Along the way, Maddie Palmer from our U17 team got to play a little bit, got a couple of periods in on the 17th. No, I'm sorry, on the 16th. And so that worked out okay for him against the rink. And so he got some, overage activity for him. That worked out. Then he played very well, gave up 4 goals in 2 periods. So good on him to have come in and helped out Aiden Trapp, our regular goalie in that particular team. So yeah, they finished off the weekend, although they lost the 3 games. They were good games, and our guys learned some stuff about the league and about how to play in tough situations.
Yeah, and Gordie, I'm trying to find the score for that game in North Dakota that they played as I'm trying to take a look at where I may be able to find it. Trying to look on the opponent's website as the
Yeah,
Buffaloes finished off against the North Star Knights
I was
down
going to say that might
in
be
the
the place
state.
to look, but I don't know how you find that at the website, maybe. But
But
like you said,
I currently can't find anything. We'll update the viewers, of course, when this episode
sure.
goes live on how that game ended up shaking out. But from what you heard, Gordy, from what you were saying during the break to me, seemed like it was a tough opponent for the Buffs to end off their weekend. But always fun when you're able to play a team that you haven't played before that plays in a different country from your own.
Sure. Well, the trip down, of course, you're going to the States. Aiden Trapp, one of our goalies, and Tate, I think, one of the trip are both Americans, so they go back and play under their flag for a change. Ralph Engelstad Arena is a beautiful place. It's a major league facility in Grand Forks, and so great to play in that building and against a strong U.S. opponent. And we know that it's a Christian school opponent. And typically they're very good. So I'm going to assume that it would have been a good game, maybe another tough one, but nonetheless a good game for our guys to be involved in. And it's not too far from home, and it's always good to play. Again, like you said, a new opponent, whereby it's not same old, same old. Let's see what these guys have got and what we can do with and to them as we play this game out. So, yeah, it'll be great to update the folks once we find out a score before you edit this thing into reality later today.
Yeah, and you're right about that, Gordy. I'm interested to see how that game ended up shaking out. And yeah, cool for this team to be able to play in a arena, a surface of ice, where a D1 NCAA team plays with a whole bunch of rich history in UND. But Gordy, for this male U18 prep program, they'll have one game only coming up this weekend, a lighter weekend for them, and then on March 1st will be their last regular season game against Snacks. I guess we'll kind of talk about that with them having a bit of time off, with this being so late into the season, with their consolation playoffs coming up. Huge for this team, I assume, to be able to get a bit of rest given what's been happening with maybe players going through injuries this season. Them getting to rest up, I'm sure this is huge.
Sure, one game a weekend is okay. I mean, kids like to play more hockey, more games rather than practice. But right now, practice is not a bad thing, and you get them a day off or two rather than be on the ice every day, at least officially. Maybe they can go for their own open skate times or something. But get some black and blue back to skin color and get a little rest in because those whatever the playoffs are called, whatever they do, they throw a lot of games at you in a short period of time, and you'd like to be fresh and as healthy as possible. So this will be by playing one game on a weekend for the next couple of weeks will be easier on the body and the mind, and we get a chance to work on some of their special teams and do some of the things and get the goalies ready for more shots. There you go. Goalies like shots. There you have it, folks.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the goaltenders, I'm sure deep down they love it, right, Gordy? Getting that much action, you just get that much more exposure from that point of view. But yeah, only one game coming up for the Buffs. A U18 prep program coming up on Saturday, as they'll be in Oak Bluff at the rink training center to take on Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg. Gordie, for the U15 prep program. They were in action in some tournament play down in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Always fun when you're able to get out. I remember going down to Thunder Bay. Didn't really like the place because we didn't have that much success while and there wasn't too much to do. I hope that the U15s had a bit more fun though. Take us through their past weekend of action.
Well, just on the opposite side of that Thunder Bay thing, I used to travel there for work. I sold steel for a long time, as some people know, and that was part of my territory. I always enjoyed Thunder Bay. There's actually lots of things to do but you got to know where to find them, and you got to have friends out there. And I was able to. And if you got nothing else to do, there are various rinks in town. You go watch a hockey game. It's the wintertime, or baseball in the summer. So lots going on actually. But in the meantime, yeah, we were 1 for 4 on the weekend. That was okay. The three of the four teams that we played were older, bigger, stronger, meaner, tougher teams that than we were. They beat us, but not by an awful lot. We, so we enjoyed the weekend of playing against a little bit bigger teams. I think three teams from the States, or maybe all four of them. Won the last game fairly handily against a team that was kind of equal up in age, but maybe not quite in skill level. And so we enjoyed that game a little more. And just to tell you about the goalies, you mentioned the goalies, getting shots and whatnot and playing games. The goalies would rather be in the net with the 50 shots rather than the 20 shots.
Right.
They just don't want to give up the 16 goals that go along with it sometimes. So so sometimes it's more fun to be in the 50 shot net. Well, 50 shots not too bad. If 40, 50, you can keep the score down. It gets into that 60, 70 range. Yeah, it's horrible, but believe me, goalies would rather have shots on net than win the game. If that, other than championships, that would be the heart and soul of your goalkeeper almost on every team. More shots, better, and of course, there's, like you said, more exposure for them to the scouts, etc. And we make sure they remember that when they play. There's no quit in the goalies. You go out and you battle like a crazy man or girl until somebody takes you out of there.
Yeah, and I think adding on to that point, I think Kevin Bieksa brought it up actually, talking about how in the Four Nations tournament through the first few games, this was in the preview show of Canada versus US, but he said it's tough being a goaltender in a situation like that where you're not facing as many shots, but all of them high danger chances. So I think the flip side of that is sure your team's playing a lot better if you don't give up as many shots, but the goaltenders, I'm sure, want as much action as possible. Like even talking about 50 saves, a lot of fun to play in those games, I'm sure. But yeah, just one more thing before we add on and talk about that win for them to end off the weekend. Our trip to Thunder Bay, it was like when I was in grade 11, Gordie. It was so bad because we didn't win a single hockey game. The hotel was nice and we had a Tim Hortons by us, but
Ah, there you
yeah,
go.
we didn't have like our coach or our general manager plans for us to eat at a soup kitchen while the parents go out and eat at the keg, right? So it
Okay, well, there you go.
it was quite an interesting time down in the Thunder Bay where yeah, it brings takes me back to my St. Vital Victoria's days. But Gordie, for this team to be able to win the last game of the weekend as handily as they did after getting handled quite easily on the scoreboard throughout the weekend by the scores, huge for this team's confidence, as we always like to say after a win like this, I'm sure.
Yeah, when you've lost 3 games to bigger, stronger, faster teams, more skilled guys, I mean, you're feeling pretty bad, and so you want to get your last game in, and you got to win and score some goals. Goalie plays a decent game. Everybody kind of feeling better about themselves. You got an 8-hour bus ride afterwards. In this case, it was the next day because of a later start. So they get on the bus in the morning and they're feeling pretty good about the fact they won their last game. That's huge in any sport when you're traveling, is to if you win that last game or the game that you want to play and you're going home and you're the winner, the bus ride is a bit shorter. I don't know how that happens, but it's like 6 hours instead of 8 hours. I'm not sure why that is, but it works that way, and you feel a little bit better about yourself. It's a happy trip or a happier trip in this case, and so yeah, good on the kids to have had the gumption to take charge in the fourth game and take the win.
Yeah, and like you said, playing against some bigger, some tougher opponents from different leagues this past weekend down in Thunder Bay. They'll be finishing off their regular season with 4 matchups, three of them coming up this upcoming weekend with Okanagan Hockey Academy, BWC Academy, and Delta Hockey Academy, all games going at Schools Arena in Calgary, Alberta. Gordie Tumilson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Before we let you go, Gordie, just want to say thanks for taking the time as always for joining me, and anything we didn't touch on that you want to end off with for the viewers at home.
Well, I think we touched on most everything. I think the neat part about this is in 2 weeks, March the 2nd, I believe, there's a series of starting dates, but I think our U15s kick off the playoffs on the 2nd of March in Penticton. And so we're kind of prepping for that now, and we're looking forward to great competition and one more great trip out to BC before the season comes to an end. And then we have another 2 months of player development for our fans out there and people that are listening. Hockey doesn't end in middle of March. It continues on to the end of May. And our ID camps, of course, are coming up in late March and April. Go to the website, www.pilotmountainhockeyacademy.com. Thanks very much, Graham. Love to be here.
And Gordie Tumilson joined this edition of the Buffaloes podcast here on G Show Productions. We're going to take another commercial break here, and then I'll be back to show you the schedule and some other things from around Pilot Mountain. Coming up next, apologies to our sponsors, by the way, for not being able to showcase their messages, their slogans, their websites as we usually do. Been running into some weird technical difficulties lately, and that making this stream slower at points, so hopefully everything's held up from a viewer standpoint. And if you are still tuned into this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, stay tuned for more coming up this quick commercial break here. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And welcome back to this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy fans. Just currently trying to find the result from that final game of the weekend for Pilot Mound. I guess of the week, as they played yesterday at Ralph Engelstad Arena, or 2 days ago now, since this is on the 19th. They played on the Monday against the North Star Knights, and yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can find a score anywhere still. And no, nothing's been reported anywhere. Of course, this wasn't a CSSHL matchup, so they don't have it on their website. And the team Pilot Mountain played, the North Star Knights. I've checked their website, but you can't find anything on it. So we'll hopefully have that score for you next week, or in the range of course, how Pilot Mountain did, but hopefully having the full score. In terms of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, with some upcoming events coming up, just gotta maneuver things a bit on the screen here. But yeah, senior night was earlier this month on February 8th. So, a few weekends ago now, and senior night, there's still one to come on the 1st of March, as it'll be the male U18 Prep Buffaloes. It's not senior night, it's more so senior day with this game going at 2 p.m. here in the next few weeks. So, be sure to check it out if you're in the Pilot Mound area, have a chance to get down there. And if you have a Flow Sports subscription, be sure to tune in to that matchup coming up on the 1st. But before then, lots of matchups for all these teams in the academy to end off their regular seasons, or to get closer to ending off the regular season. The male U18 prep buffs are going to be Gearing up to start their playoffs on March 1st. Before that, though, they still got a few games left. 3 this upcoming weekend against Okanagan Hockey Academy, BWC Academy, and Delta Hockey Academy, all played in Calgary. All the games can be seen on Flow Sports. As for the male U17s, they're going to be on the road in Saskatchewan and in Alberta, going to Wilcox for 2 games against Notre Dame, and then heading to Medicine Hat on Sunday for that 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time start against Saha South Alberta Hockey Academy. Wishing the best to the male U17, specifically the guests as well from this week's episode, and Dylan Svensson, Christian Cabby, as well as Griffin McGinty. All those games can be seen on Flow Sports as the CSSHL U17 prep regular season wraps up very shortly here. As for the male U18 prep Buffaloes, as mentioned, they're going to have a lighter schedule heading into their playoff matchups. First up against RHA Winnipeg this Saturday, coming up at 3 p.m. in Oak Bluff, Manitoba. If you can't make it to that game, be sure to check it out on Flow Sports. And finally, for the female U18 prep Buffaloes, they're coming off of their busiest week of the season, and won't stop there for them. They're going to be playing against some CSSHL teams, playing against Bourget College Prep as well in Winnipeg, Manitoba. As all the games before, they can be seen on Flow Sports if you're unable to make it down to the rink. And speaking of players who had a chance to take in some hockey while not actually playing the sport, having a chance to take in Canada and USA. This past Saturday is the Four Nations has been a treat to watch if you are a hockey fan and into best on best international play. This has been fantastic. This is the male U15 preps pictured here, as this was after their final game on Saturday this past week in Thunder Bay. And yeah, of course in Pilot Mountain, Manitoba for their Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy program. Plenty of players come from the States, so interested to know what that dynamic's like right now with this rivalry being re-energized. It's always been great, but it feels a bit different at this point. In Canada, looking for revenge here. Crazy. Last time Best on Best Canada lost before Saturday's game ended up being to the States in 2010 in the Vancouver Olympics. Winter Olympics, and we all know how that ended if you were tuning into that game as a Canadian hockey fan. Maybe you were too young to remember it, maybe you weren't born yet, or maybe you remember it very well. I was about 9 years old, and I remember it pretty vividly, still watching it in my basement. Would be pretty special if we get something along the lines of that, but the golden goal, I feel like that's going to be hard to replicate for sure. For the Buffaloes, one of their players getting recognized by Hockey Manitoba in the Women's Program of Excellence. There were tryouts this past weekend for the top 68 players named to this year's Program of Excellence list at Scotiabank Hockey for All Center. There was one Buffalo U18 female prep defenseman that ended up cracking the roster in Sadie Swanton, 2009 born defenseman. Congratulations to Sadie on being able to get the nod to participate in this top 68 camp, the first stage of a 2-part trial process before they make up the final team. Stage 2 won't be starting until June 6th. For that, the cuts will be named well before that, and it'll be cut down from 68 to the top 40. Best of luck to Sadie, wishing her the best, and yeah, sure, she had a good tryout this past weekend as well. As for her Buffaloes, they will be in action coming up, of course, in Winnipeg, Manitoba this upcoming weekend. We're going to hit it with one transition here, everybody, and then we'll be back for some final words on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, as this has been your news from around Pilot Mountain. And you've made it to the end of this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, everybody. I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Special thanks to Gordie, Tumilson, Dylan Sveinson. Apologies if I butchered that last name of yours, Dylan. Should have clarified it with him, to be honest with you. But also a shout out to his teammates and Christian Caddy and Griffin McGinty and coming on this edition of the show and being the guests. Check in for next week's edition of the Buffs podcast, as we're going to be emphasizing a lot of playoff talk next week as the regular season is shortly coming to a close for all 4 teams in the academy. First week or date of playoff games, I believe, is going to be around the March 1st date for the U15 prep program, starting things off. So we'll confirm that all coming up on next week's edition of the Buffaloes podcast. If you enjoyed this official Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast episode, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like, or share this episode with someone who may be interested. All things help grow the channel, but if you don't choose to do that, well, your viewership also helps out on the channel here for us, so we do greatly appreciate that. Special thanks to our sponsors as well, in Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for sponsoring yet another edition of the Buffaloes podcast, continuing to support our coverage of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy coverage here in this 2024-2025 season. Until next week, folks, till next Wednesday, enjoy the great hockey coming your way, Buffaloes Nation. Enjoy the Four Nations gold medal matchup tomorrow night between Canada and USA, which should be a lot of fun between the two nations in the rematch. Until then, nothing much more to say, everybody. We got a whack of playoff hockey for us to cover down here in Manitoba this week. A bunch of podcast episodes coming out. So, yeah, it's going to be a busy end to this weekend for us, but we can't wait for it. We hope you all have a safe and wonderful weekend, everybody. And like I said, hope you enjoy all the Buffaloes hockey and any other hockey that comes your way. Tyson Unruh gonna leave us off with the March of the Buffaloes theme here on another edition of the Buffaloes podcast, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you 7 days from now.